Hello, and welcome to part 2 on our lecture series on the Reformation here at Learning the Social Sciences. In our last lecture, Martin Luther had posted his 95 Theses. He was taking a stand against the sale of indulgences. However, Pope Leo X was not happy with his stance, and he told Luther that he needed to recant. Luther's response? No, I'm not recanting until you can show me in the Bible where I have erred, where I have made my mistake. And until you can do that, I am going to continue to preach this, and I am going to continue to write about it in the vernacular, in German, so the masses can understand me, not in Latin, but in German. So, what are some of his teachings? Well, one is not saved through the works or indulgences, but by faith, and everyone needs salvation. As he would summarize it, it is reach out your hands to accept salvation. Second, only the Lord's Supper and baptism are the only sacraments needed to be followed. The Catholic Church at this time period backed 7 sacraments. So, for example, like the last rites, marriage, and Luther kind of just summarizes it as, no, Lord's Supper, baptism, done. That's all you need. And due to these teachings, Luther stood in defiance to the church, and he is going to be excommunicated. That means you are separated from the church. You are no longer allowed to kind of go and, have communion, but you're no longer supposed to participate, and you should probably be caught and put on kind of an Inquisition trial, and that's never good. We already know what happened to Jan Hus with that one. So he was officially excluded from the church, but he is not handed over to Catholic authorities to bring him to Rome for trial because he has a prince elector that is keeping him safe. What is a prince elector? Well, the Holy Roman Empire is, it's not holy, it's not Roman, it's not an empire. It's kind of a confederacy with an emperor. And we have these prince electors who are the kind of the governors of their area or the kings of their area, depending on if they actually listen to the emperor or not. Anyway, he is going to protect Luther as much as he can. And Luther stated that one can still be an instrument of God while being a baker, farmer, butcher, father, or mother. It does not depend on your social position in life. Wait. That sounds like some sort of social equality. You mean the king is at the same level as the baker when it comes to salvation and the eyes of God? What is this? What is this? And so that's going to bring about some change. But we're going to put that on the side note here, and we're going to go have a diet of worms. I mean, a diet of worms. Worms. What in the world is that? So, like I've been talking about with Frederick, he protects Luther in not having his monk get sent to Rome for trial. Now, he's obviously more than a monk, but Luther keeps liking to go by Monk Luther and keeps up that good, monk look. And so Pope Leo even talks about him as the monk, not the PhD of theology guy up in Wittenberg. Anyway, when he was officially excommunicated, Luther, on January 1st, 1521, Pope Leo demanded he come to trial. Frederick the Wise goes to the sovereign, the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, Charles V, and he asks if he could be tried in Germany, something that his grandfather actually set up. That trial should happen in Germany, not in Rome, and Charles agrees to this, and so they hear the case in Germany in Worms. And a Diet is a legislative body, just so you know. And at the trial, Luther refuses to recant. He does apologize for some of his words that he put in some of his writings and books of a personal nature. But in terms of his theology or his teachings, he basically refuses, he cannot recant, and he comes out with his line, Hier ich stehe, ich kann nicht anders. Here I stand, I can do no other. He can't change, and he cannot speak out against the things that he sees as biblically correct and right. And so while traveling back from Wittenberg, Luther is actually going to be kidnapped by Frederick the Wise's knights and brought to the Wartburg fortress for his own protection, because he assumes that he is going to be kidnapped by Catholic forces or the forces of the emperor, and Luther is going to be no more. While he is in the Wartburg, he translates the Bible, or at least at this point, into German, into the vernacular. At this time period, the Bible is not out for the masses. So when Luther was a monk struggling with religious questions, he did not have access to the Bible. So what does he do right away? He translates the Bible, and he does a very, very good job at it. In 1521, then, the Edict of Worms comes out, banning all of Luther's writings and books. And when he has the Bible come out, oh yeah, they want that Bible. However, after 9 months, Luther will leave the Wartburg. But in 1524, lasting until 1526, a German peasants' revolt is going to start. The lower classes are going to rise up against their overlords because the peasants want to be able to choose their own ministers. They want to abolish serfdom. I mean, who wouldn't in this time period? They want to abolish feudal dues, and they want to have fair treatment in court. They want to have some equality here. And Luther at first embraced the movement because he's like, yeah, you guys should have some, well, equality. However, he then denounced the peasants when they turned violent and started to kill some of their landlords. This then allowed the princes to go in and violently put down the rebellion, and around 100,000 people are killed. Some historians have gone up to a high number of 300,000, but we do not have any exact measurements from there. But this is going to be something that is going to, really cause some pains for Luther, to know that his writings and his words has caused all this bloodshed. So it's just something that is going to mark his life. Luther, in terms of his later years after the major controversial parts of his life, he does marry Katharina von Bora, a former nun who escaped from a monastery in a fish barrel and rode for 3 days to get up to Wittenberg, and then popped out of the barrel and eventually marries Luther. They're going to have 6 children together and make beautiful music. Martin Luther is somebody who is going to go and write a whole bunch of songs, and Katharina von Bora helps him with a lot of them. And so Away in the Manger, things like that. Were written by Luther. Now, in 1530, Emperor Charles V is going to try to stop the Reformation movement. He wants his empire to become Catholic. And so Luther goes and sends down a colleague to Augsburg for another diet, another legislative assembly, and a whole bunch of princes to go and stand up to the emperor and say, no, we are going to stay now Lutheran for this new movement, and we are not going to rejoin the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church is not reformed. We're out. And they also brought with them a write-up of the teachings and the beliefs of Lutheranism. So they're not kind of saying like, we're just like following this one guy. No, they go down and write down the theology that they're following. And eventually the emperor has to accept it. And so the Peace of Augsburg is going to be signed, where now it is up to the princes to decide which form of Christianity you can follow, either Catholicism or Lutheranism in the Holy Roman Empire. This is huge in terms of Europe now having some religious choice. It's not like a lot of religious choice, but it's something. But then in 1537, Luther has a huge stain. He actually writes against the Jewish people. So Luther felt that he could go and convert Jewish people now that he had done all of this work in theology, and that it was probably the Catholic Church that stopped them. And surprise, surprise, they're not converting because they're Jewish. Like, come on. They're not just going to suddenly convert. You might get one, person converting, but not masses. And so Luther then wrote out against the Jews. And the Lutheran Church, of course, has spoken against these writings and distanced themselves from these writings. However, Hitler will resurrect these writings and use them in the 1930s and 1940s. So a huge tarnish on Luther's legacy. Yeah. Luther himself also struggled with various health ailments in his life. He had probably irritable bowel syndrome, which was never good. He did a lot of his work sitting on a desk potty that was specifically built for him. So his desk had a nice literal throne. He sat on a chair with basically a hole cut in it so he could just sit there and do his work while trying to poo all day. Not nice if you are coming to have a meeting with him, but yeah. And in 1546, Luther went to travel to his hometown of Eisleben. And when he arrived, he actually suffered from a heart attack and he died, which ended his movement in terms of his life. But obviously, the Lutheran Church is going to continue on and be a major part of the history of Germany and also the other areas of the world where the Lutheran Church operates today, like in the United States and Canada. So this has been the Luther part of the Reformation. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions or comments, write them down below. And remember to like and subscribe. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.